Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
It's a Monday morning, a public holiday if you live in England, maybe even Scotland as well. I'm not sure because they have different bank holidays to us, James. But chilling. All the football was played over 2 days.
We're working. I don't know about chilling.
Well, yeah. It's bright and early. There'll be some chilling later on today. All the football was played over 2 days. Nice and compact.
Yeah, good. Like that. Another highly enjoyable weekend of Premier League football with some good games, some aggressive games. And so just second in the league, mate. Congratulations. Still.
We are. To be honest with you, we'll talk about that when we get to the games because we threw away 3 points on Saturday, which is really disappointing. From West Ham's point of view, but we stayed, up there, and now Southampton away. Just got to keep marching on, really, because if you'd offered me, I think I was looking for 10 points from the first 4 games, 3 wins and a draw. And so if we beat Southampton, we got 10 points from the first 4 games. It's just that it was the Leicester game that I thought might be a draw, not the Palace game. But second in the table. You are top of the table.
There's only 4 teams, I think, who have scored equal or less goals than us.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how there could be 2 sides to every tale and every story, because you're top of the table with 3 1-0 victories. Now, give credit to the Man City game. That was a fully deserved, no question, 3 points. But Wolves, you should have lost. And I don't know what Backman's doing with Son's cross come shot thing.
We deserved to win yesterday. It wasn't a thriller, but we deserved to win, and we probably deserved to put another goal on the board. But you saying you were looking for 10 points from the first 4. I wouldn't have been. I'm not sure I'd have been looking for 9 from the first 4. So we're in a very good position. Very pleased with our start.
What about FPL? How was your week this week? How many points and all that jazz?
Good, cannot complain at all. 74 points, up to 52,000 overall.
Wow.
Emi Martinez blank, Harvey Barnes blank, Jack Harrison blank, which is disappointing from the 3 of them because all 3 of them in and around the rank line are all differentials. But returns across the board elsewhere. Trent, 4-pointer with a bonus. Ricardo Pereira, and he needs 10 minutes for a 4-pointer. Danny Ings, 4-pointer. Luke Shaw, clean sheet. Mason Greenwood goal, Mo Salah goal, Heung-Min Son goal, Mikel Antonio captain. Good week. Cannot complain at all. All 3 of my game week ranks have been inside the top 500k. So
wow,
really pleased with the start.
That's not bad at all. I haven't had a single game week rank inside the top 500k. Yet points wise, I'm still looking at it. I'm thinking you're 30 points ahead of me, and that puts me inside the top 50k. That's unbelievable. I still feel like, maybe I'm delusional about this, but I still feel like the margins are very, very tight between what's good and what's not. And I look at some of the mini leagues that I'm in with some very good managers as well, where people are in and around my rank, and we're all fighting it out for the top of certain mini leagues. I scored 69 points this week, or as Manchild would say,
stop it.
69.
Stop
Manchild
it.
In the house, which is more than him. 69 was a decent score as well, like 5 points behind you, isn't it? As well above the average. It's given me a rank rise of another 300 places. So I've gone up 300 places in both the game weeks so far to
300.
300,000. Sorry.
Oh, 300,000. Mate.
Sorry, forgot the K. To 714,000 now, and fairly steady. It was, again, Antonio captain. He punched the air hard when he scored his goal. Tony scored for me. Ings with the assist, wasn't it, for Danny Ings? Salah goal, Son goal, Luke Shaw clean sheet, Trent random 4-pointer. I'll put it down to. 69 points, fairly steady. And the one move I did make was selling Luca Dean, who would have got me points, for Brandon Williams, who was benched anyway. So I played Luke Ayling, was my plan, ahead of Luca Dean. So there's 4 points swing in it. It's not a big deal, but I've got money burning a hole in my pocket right now, James. £2 million sitting in the bank, ready for a double transfer post internationals, depending on what direction I decide to take my squad in.
Yeah, I've got 2 frees as well. I made the sickening move of Cucho to Brighton's Zakiri just to give me 0.5 in the bank. The original idea had been to go obviously Salah to Bruno. And I was scared off for a couple of reasons. One being that I knew going into this week there was other transfers and problems that was going to need to fix that weren't a problem going into this week. For example, Ricardo Pereira and Harvey Barnes, the possibility of Emi Martinez missing game week 4, which is now a certainty, by the way. Yeah. I've got no goalkeeper going into game week 4, and that's a problem that could come around again for game week 8, which ironically Villa do have a decent fixture of Wolves at home. So probably need a new goalkeeper. Pereira's got an injury, so that's probably got to be dealt with. Harvey Barnes I need to deal with. I could carry him through game week 4. I haven't decided yet, but I think my point was if I went Salah to Bruno, I knew that I was going to go Bruno back to Salah in game week 5. And that extra transfer was something I probably couldn't afford because my squad had carried me for the 3 game weeks, but I knew it was going to need a reassessment. Now, what I don't think it needs is a wild card. I just don't think I have enough problems in the squad to justify wanting to use a wild card. I honestly would rather take a -4 or a -8 if necessary, if I'm in a really bad position. But I think it's one of them. I just look at it and go, I've got Alien against Liverpool. It's not ideal. I've got Barnes against Man City. It's not ideal. But if I do carry him through those 2 fixtures, I'm probably happy with them again. Barnes has 3 good fixtures after that. Luke Ayling has a long stretch of good fixtures. I mean, Luke Ayling's definitely not going, but I'm talking about the idea of, okay, look, if I've got to play him against Liverpool, I've got to play him against Liverpool. So I think it's probably going to be Martinez, Pereira are the 2 priorities to sort out. Maybe the -4 to remove Harvey Barnes as well, which probably means I'm keeping Danny Ings at the moment for Chelsea away. That's okay because I'm not convinced about what the planned move was Ings to Raul Jimenez. I think that can wait another week if necessary, or if it's going to be Calvert-Lewin instead. It's another one I might, is if Calvert-Lewin's definitely going to be fit, could be another -4 Ings to Calvert-Lewin. But wildcard's a definite no for me.
Me too. I mean, the only injury that I have is Ben White with his illness, but he should be back after the international break. And Ben Foster, and Foster's bench fodder anyway. So I don't see any need to be pulling out the wild card. In terms of problems, and we talked about this preseason, fix the problems first. Barnes, I guess, is the biggest problem because he hasn't returned in any game so far. Perhaps closely followed by Diogo Jota being benched at the weekend. Does that mean Firmino comes back in? Although he was subbed at just before half time, right? So whether or not
hamstring injury too, probably okay there.
Oh, was that why Firmino came off? I know he had a knock, but I didn't see what was confirmed.
Obviously not a serious hamstring injury, and I think look, he ran off the pitch and stuff, but enough for them to substitute him. So he would have to be a major doubt for game week 4. So it's probably less of a priority.
Jota can stay in that situation. Barnes is a concern. Ings is a concern because their fixtures swing, and he's been, I wouldn't call it lucky, but he's been clinical. There hasn't been a massive volume of chances and stuff. So for me, if you put a gun to my head and said make your 2 transfers right here, right now, I would probably be selling Barnes and Ings and buying Calvert-Lewin and one of Havertz or Mason Mount, and that would set me up nicely. And in a couple of weeks' time, once Manchester United play Aston Villa, Luke Shaw will go, and I'll get a Chelsea defender, and I'll have a double up on Chelsea at that point as well. And I'll look at one other move. So I'm not. They're just moving pieces around the chessboard at the moment. There isn't anything major, but Barnes to Havertz or Mount is very much on the cards. And I'd like to go Ings to Calvert-Lewin, but obviously Calvert-Lewin's muscle injury flagged on the site at the moment. So I need to find out more about what that happens with.
What that is broken toe.
Oh.
But he's been playing through it. He's had the broken toe since pre-season, mate. So whether he'll get pulled out of the England games or not to get this sorted out and fixed, I'm not sure. But he's probably not a problem, Suj. He's been playing through pain. Whether you're happy to buy a player that is carrying an injury is another matter, but there's a couple of weeks to make that decision. What's your bus on captain for game week 4 at the moment?
It's a good question.
I will tell you that I've got three options in my opinion. Heung-Min Son away to Crystal Palace. In fact, four. Heung-Min Son away to Crystal Palace, Mo Salah away to Leeds, Mason Greenwood at home to Newcastle, or Antonio again away to Southampton.
I've got two of those options, mate. Three I've got, but I think two are viable options.
Which one would you think's not?
Salah at Leeds.
You don't think Salah at Leeds?
No, I mean, I would, if I was ranking them in order of who I would captain right now, Son against Crystal Palace, based on what I've just seen of Crystal Palace, is top. Then Antonio against Southampton. I'm not sure about Mason Greenwood at Newcastle. I think he could go off, but maybe not go off big. And then I'd say Salah against Leeds.
I think I'd have Son bottom of them four at the moment.
Oh, wow. Okay, but you obviously saw your team play, so you'll have more of an insight as to why you think that. I was basing that decision very much on Crystal Palace more than I was on Spurs.
The point for raising the question is there's two obvious players missing from, well, three. One obviously being Harry Kane, who a lot would have gambled with this week. And if you have, I think you should hold it. Obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo, home to Newcastle. Romelu Lukaku at home to an Emi Martinez-less Aston Villa.
No price on Ronaldo yet.
No, but we know it's going to be high, don't we? He's
12.
He's not going to come in at 10 million, is he? He's going to be in and around that, isn't he? 12,
in between
12
Lukaku and Kane, I think is where he'll come in at.
And I think there's going to be mass movement. I think it's one of the major reasons that people are wildcarding now is I've got to get Ronaldo in, is what a lot of people are thinking. Plus, there's going to be a mass movement away from Bruno Fernandes, I think, which is ironic. Like, unless you're wildcarding, I really don't get the idea of selling Bruno Fernandes for game week 4. What, like, suddenly he can't go mental at home to Newcastle? I think he can, actually. I think it's probably off the table for me to buy him now because I think I've got enough good options from captaincy. But my immediate thoughts at the moment is not to force in Ronaldo or Lukaku, though I do want to get a forward in at that price. I think that's where I need to head towards, is getting a forward, and that moves between Ronaldo, Lukaku and Kane, depending on what's appropriate. I know I need to get there, but I'm not convinced that I need to force it, knowing that it's Salah for me in 5 and 6. Then I need to get Lukaku for 7. That's my thinking at the moment.
So who are you captaining then?
To be honest, I think it could be any of them. I might just go to Salah, quite possibly. Should we fear Leeds from a captaincy perspective?
I mean, they've conceded 8 goals so far this season. Manchester United tore them a new one running in behind, and that's what Salah's particularly good at. So I don't think you should fear it.
I'd like to stick it on Mason Greenwood. I just want to. It seems difficult right now to think that he'll get pulled out the team, having scored in all 3 games so far.
We talk about need versus want quite often. Jota to Greenwood is so high on the top of my want list. I don't need to do it, but I love Mason Greenwood, and I just like what he's doing with the team right now.
Well, I think exactly that. It's one of them that you'll want to reverse that for game week 5, particularly if Firmino's going to be out for a while. You'd want to reverse it ahead of those Palace and Brentford fixtures for Liverpool. I mean, I've no problem going Antonio again away to Southampton, to be honest.
I think I know he can bully them on whether or not he goes to Jamaica. Man, do we know if he's going?
Well, no, I don't at the moment, and that could be another problem that leaves me without another player.
I don't think it's likely that he'll go to Jamaica. Man.
Okay, man.
Oh dear, yeah.
So I'm not committed, and with that in mind, I think where I'm at probably early transfer wise is just keeping an eye on Emi Martinez. I think he's got to go for me, unfortunately. It's one of the mistakes I made to start with. I can't be having a keeper who's going to be missing 2 out of 5 game weeks and not have the backup. I really did consider going Ben Foster to Jed Steer last week because Steer's a 4.0 keeper and just having that as the cover. But I wondered if there was any possibility that Villa could get another number 2 or something, so bottled that one. And Villa's fixtures are rough, right? It's all right having Martinez for them fixtures. I'm not sure I want Jed Steer for some of them fixtures. So I think Martinez has probably got to go. The one I've got my eye on at the moment, although he's been heavily criticised for the goal yesterday, is Sarr at Watford. At Wolves, sorry.
Wolves.
I think he's interesting because if I end up going longer term with the wild card, which is probably going to take me up to around about game week 14 or 15, Like Wolves' run is that 4-14, absolutely brilliant. And they've been very good and very unlucky so far. And it gives me a way into some Wolves coverage. That's where I'm leaning to go at the moment. That's a transfer I don't mind making early. I'd be bloody unlucky to lose a goalkeeper, wouldn't I, through injury over an international break. That's my immediate thoughts, most likely. Whatever the other decision is, I'm waiting until the other side of the internationals. I don't care about the price falls and stuff. I've got to let it go.
Yeah,
I need the information.
Of course, and the lack of uncertainty around people picking up injuries in the international break, because I'm not having none of that at the moment at all. Yeah, we talked about Antonio. What do you think? Did you
An Andy Robertson injury would be handy. I've still got
Shimikas is still sitting there.
Sorry, Robbo.
Oh dear. We were talking about Antonio. Did you see his goal celebration?
Yeah.
The chicken dance.
Yeah.
So they were talking about it on commentary. I thought I'd better shed clarity on this on the pod while I can before we get into the games. Him running around doing the chicken dance was not him running around doing the chicken dance. Right. It was a pigeon on the pitch for the whole fucking game.
Oh, is
and
it?
It wouldn't go. So he decided to start in the centre circle, and he was just walking around like the most casual pigeon in the world. Didn't give a fuck about anyone. And
so is that how pigeons dance?
No idea. But their pigeon then decided in the second half that it would just chill by one of the corner flags directly. But basically, the whole game, every now and then, you'd get the odd player would try and like shoo him away or something. He wasn't going anywhere. So
why is there no footage of this? Why has no one seen it?
I don't know why anyone hasn't highlighted it, but this pigeon was chilling, mate. The game was going on as normal, but every now and then you'd be like, "Oh, pigeon's just over there." It was the pigeon dance for Antonio. And it's ironic because Moisey was moaning after the game about the pitch being in poor condition at the London stadiums because fucking pigeons are eating it all, aren't they?
Is it?
Well, I don't know why that is, but
we'll sort it out.
Yeah, sort it out indeed. Let's talk about some of these.
Use
games.
that cannabis lighting that they use to keep the pitches in good
ultraviolet.
condition. Yeah, that'll scare. That's going to scare the pigeons away.
Haven't you lot got a spare pitch to sell for like 300 grand or something?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure Leeds United will buy it though, mate. I'm just a bit concerned now. You told me about that Antonio celebration. If he's a bit like confused again because he doesn't seem to know the difference between a late 90s film and one that was a lot earlier than that.
Oh, it Save the Last Dance.
What was all that about? Idiot. He meant Dirty Dancing, didn't he?
Did he?
Yeah.
I was confused. What
he even said in his interview, he was like,
Save the Last Dance.
Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher were so confused when he was like, it's from Save the Last Dance. And you could tell they were a bit like, yeah, I don't know that film. Mate.
I haven't seen that.
And then he was talking about Baby as well. He was like, he must be talking about Dirty Dancing.
Dirty Dancing. That's it. He tweeted out a picture of the two films afterwards. Funny. Let's talk about these games because there's plenty to unpack and we can get into it. Nice and snappy. Manchester City 5, Arsenal 0.
Oh wow!
This is so much more a story about Arsenal than it is about Manchester City, where it just seems to be where when it's going wrong, everything's going wrong. But then you do look at it and you think, what kind of decisions are being made at this club that's culminating on what's going on the pitch? Like Kolasinac, everything I've seen is like, where did he come from to suddenly be starting in the defense? And then obviously Xhaka doing Xhaka things like getting himself sent off, sloppy defending, mistakes all across the park. And quite rightly, I've seen a number of people say it should have been 8, 9 or 10-0 because Leno pulled off a number of good saves and City were in cruise control. This is a bad state of affairs for Arsenal.
Yeah. Okay, here's the good news for Arsenal. They played well for about 8 minutes. They set up in what to me felt like a 5-3-2 formation, and the idea was to try and press Manchester City quite high. And they didn't stop doing it in the first half, even after the red card. And I mean, the third goal was just perfect execution of City, where a ball gets played, I think from Ederson, straight into the midfield area, and they're running at them. Like, you can't do that at the Etihad. If you're going to go, you've got to go and win the ball. It was like half pressing. All it was closing passing spaces. And once you go a man down, yeah, good luck trying to stop all the spaces because you know Ederson can go direct into people and stuff. The team lineup, when we all saw it, I thought was oh, what's this? And I'd said on one of the shows we did on Friday that I wouldn't be surprised if Arteta came up with something unique and dumb, because he loves to do it against Guardiola. I'd suggested that like Saka false nine, for example, might have been the sort of idea that he might carry through. The back five with Kolasinac playing came from absolutely nowhere, because all we've heard is Arsenal selling him, Arsenal selling him. I don't know if Pablo Mari's perhaps had a week of not sleeping after having not played Lukaku, but he obviously got pulled out of the team. So he's picked 3 centre-halves, but he's got no faith in the one that he started, in spite of the fact that Ben White and Gabriel were still absent as well. But as I said, Arsenal started okay. And it's a trend of something I've had a long-held belief for a long time, actually, that Man City have a tendency to be very sloppy in the starts of games that the Etihad. And they were here in this one until they scored. And the manner of the goal, I just think, completely sucked everything out of Arsenal, because it's a long looping cross and one of City's smallest players ends up with a free header at the back post. It's so abysmally defended. Leno should come and punch everything or catch everything. Or it was was it Chambers at the back post, wasn't it? You've got to deal with it better. And crosses throughout the game, they just didn't deal with. I mean, even on Ferran Torres' goal for the 5th goal again, I think it was Holding, let him go. He's just poor. He's so average and poor. They don't dominate. We spoke after game week 1 about Ben White's going to need an authoritative, powerful partner with him. Now, Gabriel might be it. And it's worth saying, yes, Arsenal have still got a number of players injured. But I think the manner of the way they just let the game go to become nothing was abysmal. They've had 14% possession second half. Now, if you compare the way Arsenal played, and we know they're not of the quality, but the way Arsenal played with 10 men in comparison to how Chelsea played with 10 men, that's why Chelsea are going to challenge for the league title and Arsenal will be absolutely nowhere near it. They do, of course, however, Arsenal walk into this brilliant fixture run in game week 4.
Oh, great. It doesn't fill me with any sort of joy whatsoever. Norwich have lost all 3 games. I think Norwich are going to see this game as a chance to really get some points on the board. So
well, Norwich are probably looking at it as a 6-pointer at the moment.
Burnley, defensively stubborn as you like. I think they haven't been great so far, but they haven't conceded a lot of goals, Burnley. Then it's a derby. Brighton are a very good team. Palace, granted, I think that's not till game week 8. So, meh. I'll probably, if Ben White's fit, ironically, I'll be playing Ben White in game week 4 against Norwich at home.
Yeah, you've got to.
Ahead of Luke Ayling with Leeds. Liverpool for Leeds. But I'm not going anywhere near any other Arsenal players right now. Nothing.
No, I can't see me going with Smith Rowe or the likes of similar Saka. Can't see even Aubameyang. I mean, Aubameyang in theory should be a good captaincy option for 4, shouldn't he? Not going anywhere. We'd rather pay the extra.
I'd rather captain Pukki than captain Aubameyang, mate. Come on.
I have seen a few saying that, surely Timo Pukki for game week 4, but let's be serious. No, that's not the case. And Arsenal were not going to get relegated. They'll sort themselves out. But the problem is not sorting themselves out to the manner of what their supporters would expect. There is serious pressure on that fixture against Norwich. I mean, should they lose?
Arteta's gone.
I think so. Yeah, but everything you read in between the lines at the moment seems to suggest that the hierarchy at Arsenal is going to give them the back in, etc. There's been the circumstance around people missing out because of injuries, COVID, etc. They are going to give some time. When he spoke to Adam Pritchard, our Arsenal correspondent last week, he said there was almost zero danger of him getting the sack early, unless something really, really badly went wrong. I guess it's halfway there, and that it would probably come to a part in ways October, November. He tweeted after the game that he doesn't. I think he's in the position that I was in under Mourinho now. Like, he doesn't look forward to watching his team play or anything. In terms of process plan, I think Arsenal did have a plan, but the plan wasn't good, and then they couldn't change from the plan. Once you go down to 10 men at Man City, you got to die. You got to die out there, or you're going to get humiliated. And the only reason they didn't get properly humiliated is I really don't think Manchester City could be bothered. And yep. I think a part of that may well have been Guardiola's relationship with Arteta. Mm-hmm. Like, don't go mental on them. It felt like that to me.
With Manchester City, let's leave the discussion as simple as where do we go? For me, it's like, okay, the next three of the next four are Leicester, Chelsea, Liverpool. I don't think they're going to be as high scoring as the
You got
last
Southampton
two.
in the middle of that as well.
That's one out of the next three, and three of the next four obviously being tough games. So for me, I think it's just going to be a case of leave it till game week 8 now, before I go back for any Manchester City. And maybe by then the injured players will come back in, De Bruyne, Foden, and so on, and then we'll know how Pep wants to line up more consistently. Potentially, I don't know where I want to. Oh, I don't know where I want to go with City. Just don't know where I want to go.
No, and that's okay not to know. Because when you look at the scorers, they've obviously won the last two games 5-0. I think we've got 8 different goal scorers. I think. And that represents an ongoing problem that is going to be the case for Manchester City unless they buy a major centre forward in the next 36 hours or so. Now, should they not, a little bit like what I said to you last week, I think it's going to make Ferran Torres a very, very serious option.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's an option I particularly want to look at until, like you said, I've got the clarity and come around to sort of game week 8 or so. And it's still going to burn. But at 7 million-ish, I'm okay for it to burn. It's in more the Jota Greenwood level, and he can come on late in games. It's different to the ongoing problem with Mahrez. I mean, you don't want to pay this for Raheem Sterling at the moment, do you? So I think Ferran Torres is the outstanding one. And those who have got problem players, Barnes, Rafinha might become an issue this game week if he's going to miss out for Leeds. We're not sure at the moment. Ferran Torres obviously offers an alternative, because as much as Leicester away looks a tough fixture, they're not in a good place defensively at the moment at all. So
especially Pereira's out as well.
But then you look afterwards and go Southampton at home. Yeah, great. We've got the Champions League restarting in between the two fixtures. We've got a Champions League fixture in between Chelsea away and Liverpool away as well. I'm not keen to slam into it. Honestly, the only one right now that would be a consideration for me is Torres. I think whatever else you've got, you keep hold of. Like if you're on Grealish and stuff, I don't think you're moving away. It's not a priority.
Grealish was always good
it's
value,
fine.
Isn't it, at 8?
Mahrez is probably a bit more of a concern because the amount of money you're playing in for. I mean, at least Grealish is playing and stuff at the moment. Mahrez, you can't keep taking these cameo stuff. And I think the movement of Gabriel Jesus' position to the right must be concerning. Jesus played well again in the time he was on the pitch on Saturday. So I think there'd be concern. I'd be looking to move Mahrez on, I think. I think Grealish should be holding. Torres would be the one to get. I don't even mind that as an option, actually, a sideways Mahrez to Torres, just to find some money at the moment. I don't mind. You'd have to look at the fixtures and say, how big can Riyad Mahrez go off in these games?
Whereas Torres seems to be able to pop off quite a bit now.
Well,
Torres is the new Mahrez.
Well, it's just by default of, I know, like even was discussing with Johnny Pringle last week, doesn't even overly rate him as a player. But if he's a 7 million midfielder and he's going to play up front for Manchester City every week, it absolutely deserves consideration. However, I would not be surprised if they buy someone before this window closes. So, and it's not a priority for me. Like I can't see me going Barnes to Torres for a -4, for example. I'm not going to do that.
No. What about Villa Brentford? Nice to see Ivan Toney get off the mark. A number of people had kept faith with him. A few had let him go before the price drop earlier in the week, down to 6.4 million. But he did take his goal well. I mean, he hit that ball pretty hard. Good finish. All in all, ended as a 1-1 draw, though. Danny Ings now is the one that is a concern, stroke not a concern, depending on how you want to look at it. He's being incredibly clinical and has scored or assisted in every game so far this season, or Villa have created no chances and nothing to look at here.
Yeah.
I'm really not that bothered about keeping Ings anymore. I've had what I wanted out of him in the first 3 games, and I'm happy to move on to someone else, Calvert-Lewin, or he'd be the fall guy for a big jump up to a Kane or Ronaldo. So, I'm done with Villa. I don't particularly have any desire to go back for any more, considering what they've got coming up as the next 4, and even, Arsenal at the next 6 doesn't really help. But Wolves is going to be tricky. It's actually, ironically, Wolves is a green fixture, West Ham's a grey fixture, and Arsenal's a red fixture. Come on, sort that out, which is probably the other way around. No interest in Villa at all now. And Toney will stay for me for Brentford. I think at 6.4, he's cheap enough. They've got Brighton and Wolves in the next 2. He's fine.
Yeah, clear talisman, took the goal well. Did he pick up any bonus, Suj, Tony?
No.
Was it a 6-pointer?
No bonus. Just
Okay,
a
it's fine.
6-pointer.
I'm pleased that he scored for those that own. And I think with Brighton at home next, Wolves away, I don't think...
Sorry, one bonus for Tony. What am I talking about?
He did get a 7-pointer, yeah?
He did get... No, he got a yellow card.
Oh, so he'd still got a 6-pointer. One bonus, one yellow card.
Yeah,
okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I don't think there's a rush to get rid of him with the 2 games that are coming up. They do have a dog run of 6 to 9, which is Liverpool, West Ham away, Chelsea, Leicester. Doesn't look great. So I think there's a little bit of assessment, and I think it's probably for most people is a plan to have the money ready to shift it up. I think for those wildcarding now, we probably pose and you rework your team. What's your thoughts at the moment, Suj? Is it just low priority because you're sitting there with a talisman, basically?
In Tony?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also he's cheap. So I really am trying to work and maneuver my squad more towards the 4 or 5 players that are just cheap and I don't really care about. And if they play, they play. And if they don't, they don't. And then piling my money into actually only 9 or 10 players. And Tony's the cheapest striker, I think, that's worth it at the moment. I don't really want to go any cheaper than...
You're free up front at the moment, am I right in saying?
Yeah, Antonio, Ings and Tony, yeah.
How do you feel if I'd start comparing Tony and Torres? Say, look, it's 0.5 more for Torres.
It's highly likely I could end up with Torres for Barnes at the end of this transfer window, international break. Sorry.
I mean the idea of going 2 up front.
No, I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Sacrificing Bissouma for another midfielder. And obviously, I prefer midfielders as a rule because obviously you've always got the sneaky clean sheet point. Sneaky clean sheet point and the sneaky extra point for a goal. So it does, over the course of a season, it might be 10 points or 15 points. It does add up a little bit. So yeah, I'm not averse to that.
Villa players are in no buy zone now. I think that's fairly obvious. I think their start is disappointing. I think 4 points from the 3 games they've had is not good, actually. They got what they deserved at Watford. They got what they deserved at the weekend. And for the first quarter of the game against Newcastle, they weren't good either. Although by the end deserved to win it. 4 points is what they deserved from the 3 games. And with what's to come, it's not great. I think the only 2 players I could make a case for keeping are Emi Martinez and Danny Ings. Martinez, though, you need to have the backup goalkeeper. So I think anybody wildcarding now, Martinez is gone, isn't he? Because of the problem.
Yeah.
And just generally, you're probably going to have to be a cautious and aware of buying any South American players at the moment. Danny Ings, I just look at it and go, and you're brilliant. What you said is perfect. So people go, oh my God, he's scored 2 goals. He's only had 4 shots in 3 good fixtures. Or you look at it and go, he's fucking clinical. He might get 1 chance at Chelsea and he might score. And he's not going to get bundles of chances at Chelsea. We know that, but he is great in front of goal. And I just look at it and go, it's probably not the priority to move him on. Because if Villa do score at Chelsea, he's the most likely player to do so. I do want to move it on, though. I think that's fairly obvious. The reason for going with him in the first place was those 3 fixtures. He's probably just not the biggest priority for me. I think for those who are on anything else, Matt Targets, Tyrone Mings, Matty Cashes, Emi Buendia's in it would be my advice. So many better options at other clubs now that the fixtures are swinged. Mings missed out, obviously, at the weekend. But I don't think it's a serious issue. Matt Target obviously came back into the team and Ashley Young played in a higher position. But still, if you've got Target and stuff, I think you were getting these players in for the first 3, and I think they're now bin. I think there should be a priority to bin. You don't want to be benching 5 million defenders too often. Yeah, you could look, Chelsea, Everton, United, Tottenham. What are we really expecting? Villa defenses? Nothing, is there? And although Buendia scored at the weekend, I think it's a bin. There are other better options in other teams at the moment.
Yep. Brighton 0, Everton 2. Sanchez is my only involvement. Well, Bissouma, but he sits on my bench. So his yellow card didn't help. But Sanchez is the only one. Lack of points from him again. He's only 1 clean sheet in the first 3. And I think I tipped a draw. You tipped Brighton to win. Everton have gone and comfortably won,
and they're well deserved to win
2-0.
Everton.
And in the words of Sean, where are all the Rafa haters now? Because 7 points from the first 3 is the minimum he could have possibly done to calm everybody down. I think he's done more than they needed to. They seem like they're scoring goals. Well, they are scoring goals. And they're playing a certain style of football, getting the ball in the box as much as possible, with wingers and stuff. So I think if I was an Everton fan, I'd be fairly happy right now.
I believe, and don't quote me on this because I may be wrong, but I believe they're in the top 4 for expected goals scored in the first 3 games, and also in the bottom 4 for
Wolves
expected goals conceded.
Too.
Wolves are definitely underperforming their XG. We'll get onto them in a bit. Really good from Everton, proper professional performance. I was a little bit concerned for them when I saw that Yerry Mina wasn't in the team again, and I guess he'll miss the Burnley game in game week 4, presumably through involvement with Colombia, which is a bit concerning because we're talking about Burnley and Mina is an absolute unit in the air. So be conscious of that. But I think if you've been brave enough and you've held Luca Dean and stuff, you're probably still holding. There are 2 obviously outstanding options, I think, come to mind with Everton at the moment. Obviously, DCL up front. Good returns, consistent. I mean, next 2 home games of Burnley and Norwich. Villa away in between is not there to be feared either. I mean, Calvert-Lewin, I think, if he's available for game week 4, actually becomes another one to throw into the captaincy option. The one really catching my eye is Demarai Gray. And I think on what I saw, and I watched all of the game at Leeds, and I spoke about how direct he was, really wanted to run at them. And it's the same from everything I've seen from the Brighton game as well. I mean, his goal is get the ball, run at the opposition. Absolutely brilliant. Committing people, the player that made Leicester City buy him from Birmingham all those years ago. And I wonder if he's one that falls into that category a little bit like Bamford and Jesse Lingard did last year, where you've got that preset idea of a player and you just think, I ain't going there. On what I see at the moment, in and around that value, and a lot of us need to find value at the moment, come down from 7s, 7.5s to 6s, 5.5s. I think at the under 6 million, he's the best asset right now. And I don't necessarily think it should be overlooked. And I won't rule out buying him this week. For me, I want to get. It's just a question of when, I think, and how quickly I can do it or afford to do it. Because I don't want to take a -4 to go from Barnes to Gray, even with the fixtures. But I do want to get Gray in. If I'm suddenly in the luxury where Pereira's back fit for Leicester, for example, I might make that move. That might be a transfer I'm making game week 4. Because, as I said last week, they're unapologetic, get it into wide areas, feed it into the front man, and he's so direct. And he's direct with a purpose, whereas Alex Iwobi and Andros Townsend often aren't. And I think we should all be looking at him at the moment because we're all going to need these cheaper. If you're all looking to power in all these premium forwards, premium midfielders, you want 3 of them and stuff, you have to make sacrifices somewhere. And I think Demarai Gray is really, really interesting, and it should be judged on what you've seen from him in an Everton shirt, not what you may have seen from him in a Leicester shirt towards the end of his spell there.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff coming out from the training ground and what have you is that in training as well, people are like, oh, wow, this guy's got some serious talent. He's still very young as well. So is he 23 or 24, I think, from memory, Demarai Gray? He's not.
Oh, I don't know.
He's not old, but I'll Google it while we chat. Same for me.
He's 25.
25. So Barnes to Gray is a consideration for me as well. The problem is then that's 2 weeks of stacking up the cash, going from a player to a cheaper player.
But then if you've done that, this is where it becomes worthwhile, I think. So if you do that and then you've got 4 million in the bank and you can go, if it is affordable, Danny Ings to Lukaku or Ronaldo and stick the armband on them, that's the hit. You take the hit, I think, there, Suj.
Yeah, I'll have a think. It gives me 3.5 million in the bank and it gets me Danny Ings to 11.4, which is not quite what I need. But yeah, considerations galore. Let's talk about...
On Brighton, just cut the notes first. They weren't at their best at the weekend. And as I said, Everton thoroughly deserved to win. Everything I've looked into the game seems to suggest Brighton could have played all night and wouldn't have scored, actually. They'd had one of them days. But Everton well deserved to win. The one theme that's coming out from the Brighton fans is that they really miss Solly March. The Jakob Moda played left wing back, and he can play there, but they really missed the balance that Solly March gives them. This might be the end for Shane Duffy. I think it's that sort of result, and we spoke about this, that it will trigger. Do you know what? We need Lewis Dunk back at the middle of this. That in playing left-sided centre back just doesn't work for me. I don't think it works for them. Get Dunk back in centrally. Veltman, who we didn't expect to be involved, obviously came on at half time for Alexis McAllister. And I think Veltman will come back into the team now. Tariq Lamptey's not going to be too far away, fingers crossed. Dan Burns going to be close after the international break. I expect Duffy to come out the team now.
Newcastle 2, Southampton 2. Callum Wilson giving all owners a nice 9-point goodbye present because he is now flagged.
I think he'd be okay. I think it's a thigh strain that was taken off precautionary.
We'll see.
But I think he'll probably okay, Callum Wilson. I really thought he was an outside captaincy option this week. And I know there's others at the moment who have very much got it in mind to target Southampton. And there's still weeks where you can do that for Saints who have got West Ham, City, Wolves, Chelsea, Leeds in the next 5. There's still games you can target differential captaincies against Southampton if that's what you want to do. Southampton should have won this game. The clear outstanding thing from this game from a fantasy perspective is go and look at Tino Livramento, sorry. They've got a mix up of his 2 first names. Go and look at his heat map, mate. It's scared the life out of you. You're going to want him, and you're going to want to start playing him looking at that as well. He was so high up in the clips I saw as well that I went and looked at a heat map for him, and he definitely spends more time in the opposition half than his own half. However, Southampton dominated the game anyway. Their XG was massive. Even without the Ward-Prowse penalty, it was still well over 2.5. They should have won the game, really, Saints. And our concern with them has never been about what they might do going forward. It's always been the other way. For me, they still have a rough fixture run. Really rough. West Ham, City, Wolves, Chelsea, Leeds, next 5. For me, they're not a look at until game week 8 or so. At which point, I think Adam Armstrong will be really interesting as another one to try and find the money. And people already kind of mentioned it, I think, just to try and find a little bit of money. Can I drop down from Tony to Armstrong? I think for me at the moment, it'd still be a whole Tony, personally. But he really wants to go behind Adam Armstrong. And that actually makes him a threat in any game. Because if the service is right, he'll get away. He is so rapid. And he can finish when he gets there as well. I do think he'll have a good season. And I think he'll be of interest to everybody once we come around sort of game week 8 or 9, actually. Not at the moment. Newcastle, the good news is they didn't lose this game. The bad news is they've got Manchester United next. And honestly, I think those with Bruno, I know there's, I've got to get Ronaldo and all that. He's a brilliant captaincy option in game week 4. Don't overlook the obvious of what you know about Bruno Fernandes, honestly. I think if I had him, I'd just stick the armband on him and crack on. And if you're worried about that, then you're back to where are you at? Where are you at? Because surely part of getting him was game week 4 looks so blindingly obvious. I don't think Ronaldo coming into the football club is going to change the way Bruno Fernandes plays. What it will change, obviously, is things like penalties and the odd free kick and stuff like that. But Bruno scored 3 goals from open play against Leeds. Didn't need penalties and free kicks for that game. And running off of Newcastle is something we could see some joy with as well. So I wouldn't hesitate just to put the armband on him if I owned, actually.
Norwich 1, Leicester 2. Jamie Vardy returns to the party. 12-pointer. Good return.
Ricardo Pereira's injury is so annoying. So annoying. I think if he can be back for game week 5 or so, there's every chance we'll just keep him. I don't have the information at the moment. I think it's hamstring as well, so it's probably unlikely with his history.
And with his history, that's exactly it, James. It's like, why would you rush him back now? I don't know where they're at with Castagnier, his face mask and all that.
Well,
jazz.
If it's going to be a long term, it potentially makes, I would say, Castagnier very interesting from game week 5 or so. You probably don't want to buy for game week 4 because we've got City, but there is such an influence for them to attack down that right hand side. I got a lot of stick for it because I tipped up Jose Perez last week, right, for Norwich.
Yeah.
Well, Brighton played and scored, didn't he, right? There's definitely something about attacking Norwich's left-hand side. I think Arsenal should play Pepe against them, by the way, on a separate tactic. But Pereira again bombing down that right hand side. I mean, it was so many similarities to the goal that Leicester scored against Wolves actually in that as well. Doesn't surprise me that Vardy got good returns. It does surprise me that Leicester had some difficulty in this match. I mean, Norwich can make a case to say they were a little bit unlucky actually. More shots on target. Leicester obviously had more of the ball as we would expect, but they give up a good fight, Norwich, which I think that's probably the most pleasing thing for them after the first two. And if they go up and put up the same fight against a brittle Arsenal, they might potentially have some joy. And there is a brilliant fixture swing coming for Norwich. Some would argue the fixture swing is now because it's Arsenal next. But then afterwards, Watford, Everton, Burnley, Brighton, Chelsea, Leeds, Brentford, Southampton, Wolves, Newcastle is their run up to game week 14. And again, trying to find that money. Does someone like Pookie come back onto the radar? I think Rashika is one that we should watch closely in the next couple of weeks, who's fairly cheap in that kind of Demarai grey price area. And obviously Brandon Williams has joined them. It's 4.0. And although he was at fault for one of the goals, I think the first goal, Pereira nicked it off him, didn't he? He's interesting as a sit on the bench. I think if you're wildcarding now, you stick him in, I think.
I bought him last week.
Because I think you can get away with having him second, third sub with the fixtures Norwich have coming up and not worry about it too much. I don't think he's ever a player you want to play, I don't think. But I think for those on the wild card now, Williams, Livramento, those are the two for me, who you look like they're absolutely locked to going to play. You can leave them as your two defensive subs, and certain fixtures you may want to play Livramento, for example. So I think Norwich actually are worth watching the next couple of weeks. Really keep an eye on them. Leicester have still got a good run of fixtures beyond the Manchester City game. Yeah. And that's what I mean about, you look at it and you go, oh, I've got to get rid of Barnes. He's playing Man City next. But they do still have good fixtures on the other side. Is it a big priority for me? No. I think Leicester are not a buy this week. It's probably more of a sell. Defensively, they're not right. Not going to be. But Vestergaard and Johnny Evans could both be back for Manchester City. I would say they will need them back. They will not beat Manchester City with Amartey and Söyüncü at centre back. I think Amartey makes Söyüncü do crazy things. I didn't think it was a penalty, by the way, that Norwich got. No, I think it was Least Mello in the challenge, wasn't it? He plays for it. Söyüncü's an idiot going for ground, but I think he steps across his body. He's one of them makes me wonder if the referees understand the game. For me, the fact they've actually reviewed it, I thought this was high threshold and stuff. Least Mello basically steps into Söyüncü's tackle. It's not a penalty for me.
Let's talk about West Ham 2, Crystal Palace 2, or should I say West Ham 2, Conor Gallagher 2 on Saturday.
Well, it was nearly West Ham 2, Conor Gallagher 2, and Mark Gehi 1, wasn't it, at the death?
Well, that's if you watch Match of the Day and you see literally that's the highlight.
That's what I told you, the danger of watching that show. Exactly.
It was such a misrepresentation of the game. Antonio captainers, of which there were plenty, would have loved filling their boots with a goal and assist and 2 bonus points. And he was a threat for the first half, for sure. Very frustrating game from a West Ham point of view, because we should have taken 3 points. I think Palace deserved the draw, but we should have taken 3 points from that game. We were much the better side in the first half. I don't think Palace had an attempt in the first half. We controlled possession. They started sitting in deeper and deeper. And it was one of those situations where it doesn't reflect, the dominance doesn't reflect on the stats, because moves were breaking down with the final ball or the last pass. And so shots weren't getting off or what have you. But the build-up play up until that point was very good. We controlled the game well. We were patient, defended well. Palace didn't have much to offer. Zaha doing his standard Zaha, moaning every time he got touched kind of thing. He does play up to this worst enemy type thing so badly. If he could just stamp that out, he would be a likable player, but he makes himself unlikable by just moaning about everything. Or the strategy was lump it to Benteke and see if he can stick, if the ball can stick, but it couldn't half the time. Conor Gallagher is head and shoulders for Palace better than everybody else in their team. He's a good footballer. He can play box to box. He's got a lot of good attributes. And he was the only reason Palace were any sort of threat at all. Second half, completely different game. We decided, I think, in the first 10 minutes to let Palace have the ball because they weren't threatening us. with the ball. So we're all right, you guys knock it around for fun if you want to, for a solid 10 minutes at the start of the second half, thinking we'll keep them at arm's length. You know, a boxer just jabs away and just keep you at arm's length. But the problem is it let Palace get a bit of rhythm into the game. And then from when they equalised, they were first to every second ball. They were winning the headers, and suddenly they'd found their way back into the game. And for 20 minutes, we just couldn't do everything that we did so well, which was pass the ball, win the tackles, be intense, press them. Presses, they were playing around or going up for a header. They would win the header, not us winning the header. And it just became a bit of a slugfest. And then they would just play very patchy with West Ham, showing why we were the better team, creating chances, but then Palace coming back and counterpunching us. The biggest takeaway is, I think, with a very heavy heart, Fabianski and Craig Dawson are going to make way for Areola and Kurt Zouma.
Oh, you think Kurt Zuma's going to come into the team now? Do you? Yeah, you accepted that.
Based on the weekend, I think Craig Dawson's going to lose his spot for Kurt Zouma.
I agree with that.
And I think Areola, it's time to give Areola a shot as well. Fabi's not been particularly bad or to blame, but I just think having that change now with Zouma and Areola feels like a level up on our defence versus Fabianski and Dawson. Palace, on the other hand, I mean, they're all right. They're big and strong, and definitely in that second half, they were winning headers and what have you. Conor Gallagher, if Demarai Gray wasn't there and you needed a 5.5, I wouldn't talk anyone out of Conor Gallagher because he takes a lot of the set pieces.
That's what I was going to say. Gallagher versus Gray. What do you think?
Whew, it's tight, boy.
I don't think it is. But
you think Gray all the way?
Yeah, definitely.
Gallagher was good.
Gallagher
was good. If West Ham went and bought Gallagher for £15 million or £20 million or whatever, I have no problem with that whatsoever. I think he's a good player.
You just want to line up more Chelsea rejects, then, yeah? Is this building the relationship for Declan Rice's inevitable move the other way?
The other way. We'll give you Declan Rice. You give us your academy. I don't know if that's how it will work. I honestly, I think Conor Gallagher's the one that is knitting everything together for Palace from front to back. So he's taken a lot of the set pieces, and they are a threat at set pieces. And he's the one linking
his
in
delivery
Zaha
for that chance for Gay.
Very good.
Was absolutely honestly, super.
My summary of the game is West Ham 2, Conor Gallagher 2. That's how I would describe it. Because I didn't rate Palace much elsewhere, I'll be honest with you. And West Ham, second half performance wasn't good enough. We were the better team, and I can still see on paper we are the better team, and we should be winning games like that. So to lose 2 leads is disappointing.
I just don't think I can make a case for, if you look at the next 3, for example, and I think
Palace,
when you're making a choice of Gallagher versus Gray, I think you have to look at the immediate as well. Gray's got Burnley while Gallagher's got Tottenham. Then Gray goes to Villa while Gallagher goes to Liverpool. Yeah. And you can say, oh, Gallagher's got Brighton, but then Gray's got Norwich. And I think if you just look at the immediate 3, and you could say, oh, Gray's got Manchester United away. Gallagher's still got Leicester as well. So I think if you look through the fixtures till we get the other side of when Palace go to Man City in game week 10, I think you'd have to favour Gray first.
Yeah, 100%. It's like if you're a Crystal Palace fan and you really want a Crystal Palace player in your team, then go and get Conor Gallagher.
I genuinely think he's interesting. One of the things I really like about the idea of him and looking at the goals, and obviously the chance he missed against Brentford as well, is he's clearly going to be the one from the midfield 3 that does the breaking into the penalty area. We saw that 100%. With the chance that Zaha gave him. And the other thing is, thinking, as I'd already done specifically about Tottenham playing at Crystal Palace in game week 4, is I think like Tottenham will have a big problem dealing with Benteke, which we'll come on to when we speak about Tottenham. And Gallagher's going to be the one in and around the knockdowns, isn't he? Which he does sure. Make the second balls. He is a horrible player. He's a horrible player to play against because he does not stop. He's a little cheat. He's a little diving bastard, but he gives everything on the football pitch. What we didn't see from him last year was returns. So I don't think we quite know yet if this is a one-off or not.
You could put that down to the team he was playing in. West Brom were struggling in the first half of last season as well.
But do we expect Palace to be scoring 2 or 3 goals every week? No, we don't.
No. I mean, Zaha, Benteke, Ayew, they've got quality, but it's whether or not they turn up on the day. If you got West Ham attacking assets like people would be a lot went on Ben Rama and he blanked, just stick with it because they're perfectly fine. And yeah, just stick with it. The front three swapped around a reasonable amount in the second half. Fornell's left and then central. Bowen went from the right wing to the left wing. Ben Rama ended up on the right wing. They'll mix it up a little bit like that all the time. Any moment they could return. So those three in behind the striker, don't worry about owning. If you've got a defender, also don't worry about selling just yet. Wait and see what happens with Kurt Zouma coming in, and if we do make a goalkeeper change as well.
It's a shame Kurt Zouma at 5.4 just cannot be an option. Excuse me, you're not going to pay the extra over Soufal, for example, are you?
No.
Just a complete non-option, unfortunately.
No.
On Palace, they've got a brilliant run, and it's way away from after they play Manchester City in 10, 11 to 20 is a really good run for them. And McTavish will be joining us prior to their game with Newcastle in game week 9. We'll have a proper look at them then, I think.
It's worth it.
Gallagher at that point will come back into the thinking.
He's going to score a lot of points, you know. He's going to score a lot of points and no one's going to own him. He's going to be one of those. Like James Ward-Prowse last year ended up like the 5th highest midfielder. And I don't know anyone that owned him all season. That kind of thing. I
think there are those who are wildcard now who are obviously desperate to thump in as many premiums as possible. Like I can see them going with Gray and Gallagher. I don't hate that.
Do it. Yeah, I don't hate it either. I don't hate it at all. Based on what I saw,
I bet they'll both blank a lot.
Let's talk about the big game. Should we? Liverpool 1, Chelsea 1. Perhaps a game that the story of the game, from everything that I've seen and read in the media afterwards, the reaction was a lot to do with the red card and how the red card influenced the game. I don't know if it's the whole story of the game was just the red card. Well, two very good teams here.
It obviously is a quite a lot because it impacted my thinking of the game. And I, as a neutral, and most of you will know, I don't particularly like Chelsea. I hated the red card. I had no blame on the referee. It's the law. It's the red card. I just don't like the law. I think the punishment is so bad when we can have someone wipe someone out like in the middle of the pitch or deliberately pull someone away from a counter attack and gets a yellow card, and yet someone makes a clear attempt in the first instance to try and block the ball with his fire. It obviously is going into the goal, so it has to be a penalty, and by law it has to be a red card. I just think the punishment is so harsh to remove a footballer from the pitch when you cannot say categorically 100% he definitely meant to handball it. Now I know his arm comes towards the ball, but was that because his leg goes up? Was that an involuntary, my leg's going up, my arm's going up, right? I just think the punishment's so harsh. It's not like Suarez against Ghana, is it? Where he's punched it off the line and you go, yeah, it was, in his perspective, it was worth the risk of taking the red card because it was so late in the game. Like, I'm sure if Reece James knew in that moment and had the time to think, I'm going to get sent off if this happens, then he'd let the ball go in the goal. He'd put the arm behind his back and just let the ball go in the goal. Because the chances are with Mo Salah taking a penalty, he's going in the goal anyway. And I just thought it was a shame. As I said, there's no criticism on the refs. It is the law. I just hate that law. I think it's too much personally. If it's definitely intentional, fine. But I don't feel like you could say categorically this was. What it did do was obviously impact the football match. A football match which Chelsea were deservedly ahead in. They looked really threatening whenever they counter-attacked. The positioning of Havertz and Mount was giving Liverpool a real problem. They dealt with Lukaku fairly well, but I felt they were pretty much in control. They were dealing with the atmosphere okay. And then in the second half, Liverpool had a storming spell where you thought the equaliser is inevitable. It has to come. The crowd were up. They were really playing at a higher tempo. And then eventually Chelsea seemed to settle. And it felt almost a little bit like Liverpool ran out of ideas a little bit in the final 20 minutes or so. Like in that final quarter of the game, it didn't feel like Liverpool were going to score. There was some heroic defensive performances from Chelsea. Christensen, Thiago when he came on, Rudiger. I'd love to know if Christensen could play every week because he's walking to everybody's FPL team at the price.
I think
even if you'd go double Chelsea defence, right?
I think there's a chance that he's going to start cementing that spot, James.
Well, there is a rumour going around today. One of the things I think really put people off is that they've been trying to buy Jules Koundé from Seville, who
now
can
that
play.
It was like a knock-on domino effect. If Zuma getting done means Koundé will.
Apparently, Seville have put the price up, and the deal might be
fair
off.
Play. Now, I love it when it happens to some of these big clubs.
Well, you know, Seville obviously did a swap with us, Brian Hill and Eric Lamela.
Yeah.
Daniel's probably been on stick that up another 10 mil. It's giving them the old tactics. But that deal could still happen. And then I think Koundé is going to play either right wing back or right sided centre back. And it's this that's made a real problem in terms of looking at those who've gone. Reece James, he's obviously suspended now. It may be a problem after the suspension. Because I think Tuchel still has Azpilicueta in his team as a priority at the moment. Whether he's playing right-sided centre-back or right wing-back, I think he still wants him in the team at the moment. Thiago Silva, when fully fit, is going to play, isn't he? I think the one that's nailed is Rudiger. Because when I look at the makeup of what they have, Christensen's the only other one really plays left-sided centre-back. Now Zuma's gone. I think Zuma could have played that role. So it means Christensen there. I think Rudiger's the one that's a lock, isn't it? And it's really interesting. Alonso might be holding off. I know he was part of fault for the goal, really, because he should just let Mendy claim it, and he's had a panic attack. But he might keep the place from Chilwell, you know. I still see Chilwell sitting in a lot of teams getting auto-subbed out every week. It's got to go, I think.
Yeah.
Alonso, if he was going to play regularly, you want, don't you? Because of the attacking threat, obviously. I can see me in the next few weeks ending up with Rudiger and bottling it and going with the safe option.
Safe option. Yeah. For me, it's the same. I'd rather have Christensen, but probably end up with Rudiger. Answer this for me based on what you.
I wouldn't say it's impossible that I buy Rudiger this week. Actually, by the way,
I'm really torn between Mount and Havertz.
Go on.
It just feels again like a classic consistency versus ceiling debate where Mount will tick along. I mean, Mount's played almost 90 minutes in every game so far. And he's returned so far in 2 of them with 2 assists. Whereas Havertz has only played the whole of the previous game and half of this game, but he did pick up a goal. Is it the 2 of them in behind Lukaku is going to consistently be the ones or not? I feel like Mount is a safe option. He'll pretty much play every game regardless, even if it's in the midfield 3 as opposed to one of the attacking 2 behind a striker. Whereas Havertz could be in and out quite regularly against Pulisic and anyone else that he decides Ziyech or whoever he wants to play there. But I still feel like Havertz carries a bigger attacking threat in terms of goals and could pop off at any point.
I think the only thing I'd say on it, and I think it's close because like there's 0.8 between them at the moment. I like the fact that Havertz is far less owned than Mason Mount. He's in 6% of teams, whereas Mason Mount 18% feels like a lot of he plays for England kind of ownership at the start. And most of us engaged didn't think it was going to start game week 1. So I think there is a lot of less engaged players that probably have Mason Mount at the moment. Probably more of the engaged players have actually probably stayed on Kai Havertz. I think I prefer Mount of the 2 ever so slightly, just because I'm not quite sure yet what the Lukaku influence is on Havertz. Whereas I think the Lukaku influence on Mount is none. I think Lukaku is definitely good for Mount, doesn't make a difference. Whereas I think in terms of some of the goals Havertz scored last year, a lot of them were through balls, actually, ironically, from Mount and stuff. So I think it depends on how Lukaku plays. If Lukaku probably against some of the bigger teams, like the weekend, he's probably going to run into channels a bit more than he would against, say, Villa coming up, where they probably want to keep him more in between the box and stuff. And I just wonder if he's going to fill up some of that space for Havertz to run into that might not be good for him necessarily. That's the only thing I read into it.
Hold up play, feeding balls through to whoever's running on beyond him, and that will be Havertz.
But then I think exactly that. There was one at the weekend where Mount did exactly that. He played it round the corner into Lukaku, and he was there for the return. And if Lukaku had played it into him, Mount's got a free shot at goal from 20 yards out. Lukaku didn't give it back to him. And trust me, there were other instances where Mount and Havertz should have put Lukaku in as well. They'll build that relationship. But I think in terms of stylistically, Lukaku is definitely good for Mount. From a fantasy perspective, I'm not sure it's good for Havertz. That's all I'd say on that. But I think Havertz will probably outscore Mount. I just think Mount might be worth the saving. If you have a look at it, I think he's 4th or 5th in 2021 for chances created in the league. So it's good, but he's price value, right? He's obviously on a lot of the set pieces. He's assisted Havertz goal at the weekend and stuff. So I think Mount, for me, if I had to buy one, and actually, ironically, there's a lot of talk of players in that area at the moment, kind of Ferran Torres's, Ben Rama's coming down above. I think if I did sell Harvey Barnes this week and wasn't coming down to grey but stayed at the same value, I think I'd go Mason Mount.
Yeah.
I honestly think I'd go him over Ferran Torres at the moment. And just get him in and get him ready for that 7 spell. Game week 7 onwards, where I know I need treble Chelsea.
Burnley 1, Leeds 1. Any takeaways from here?
Both teams kick lumps out of each other, especially Burnley out of Leeds.
Burnley have been a bit rough and tumble from the start of the season. I remember Tarkowski's shove for the goal in the first game as well. Bamford's had a price drop to 7.9 million. I don't own Rafinha. I don't own any Leeds players other than Luke Ayling. From game week 5 onwards, Newcastle, West Ham, Watford, Southampton, Wolves, Norwich.
So good. So good.
I feel like with Dominic Calvert-Lewin having jumped up to 8.2, Bamford at 7.9 as a move away from Ings, who's at 8.1. I mean, if Ings could just have a nice little 1.1 price rise, I could take that money and run. I think Bamford might be a go-to to cover off, because we talked about Demarai Gray and Conor Gallagher and now Mount and Torres. Rafinha's not in and about the conversation at all. And I think now people are like, you know what, if I'm going to do it, let me just get Bamford, because he's going to be on the end of most of these chances created. And over the course of a time period, Bamford will probably outscore Rafinha or Harrison. And
he should do it. He should do it at the price, shouldn't he?
Yeah, I think so. But I think it's just the peace of mind of Bamford over those two, potentially.
I'm quietly hoping that Rafinha doesn't play in game week 4 against Liverpool and people just pin him off, get that price down so I can go and buy him in game week 5. It's another reason not to panic about Harvey Barnes, because it might be like, if I wait another week, Barnes Rafinha in game week 5 is part of what I'm thinking. Because that run, and that's another reason why, like, I'm not bothered about Harrison's lack of returns at the moment. There's no way I'm selling him ahead of that run, unless his position in the team suddenly looks a problem. He's staying. Luke Ayling, I intend to play in a lot of those games. That's going to free up some money, because I've not started Luke Ayling yet this season. So yeah, ideally I'd want to add Rafinha to that. Treble leads for that period, 5 to 10. Absolutely brilliant. He's so good. Even the fixtures, you look at even West Ham at home, I think they'll create chances against you. And that's the hard one. The other 5 fixtures are absolutely brilliant. So
Rafinha,
you're right to mention Bamford, but I just think to get that trio of Rafinha, Harrison, and Ayling is going to cost me in terms of my buy price, 17 million for the free for 6 brilliant fixtures. That's where my headspace is at. I want to add Rafinha in game week 5 if I can.
Burnley, any thoughts on any of their players? No,
as we said, Chris Wood, consistency brilliantly. Has obviously come up with a big goal again. It was in the right place. As we said, we're not really looking at them till probably game week 9-ish or so. It's just not a consideration. Did you see the new fella they bought from Lyon, Suj? What's his name? Come?
Come, yeah.
Please tell me he's been given a price. I bet he hasn't.
Probably not yet.
But have you seen the picture of him going around? Find his name, please, Suj. I think it's Come.
I haven't seen the picture of him going around.
He's pointing at the badge on the shirt, but except he's pointing at the Umbro sign.
Oh, was he?
The crest. Who lets them pictures go to print? Like, honestly, just go, mate. No, mate. You're meant to be pointing at the crest, not the Umbro bit. Cornet, thank you.
Cornet.
Who, it's worth saying, is probably going to put quite a bit of pressure on Charlie Taylor's place, I should imagine, at left back. Although Sean Dyche may well end up using the fellow as a left winger, who knows? Maybe he'll be the one that opens up Dwight McNeil to finally go on the right hand side of the pitch. No, we're not looking at Burnley to roundabouts game week 9 or so. Leeds, I think there's probably an instinct from a lot of people to sell because Liverpool are coming up next. Don't. What's coming up afterwards is so good for them, in my opinion. And as I said, very much thinking about him, Rafinha. I think Bamford's a great option if people want to buy him. Defensively, to be much better as well for the fact that Llorente returned at the weekend. They obviously stayed with a back 3 as we expect them to do so because Burnley played 2 up front. That'll probably go back to a back 4 in the Liverpool game. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a back 3 again against Newcastle if St. Maximin and Wilson are both fit. So that might make them decide to stay with the back 3 just from a continuity perspective for the Liverpool game. as well. But I think once you get into the West Ham game and stuff, it will definitely move back to a back four.
Tell me about Spurs. It's you talk about biases or your kind of preconceived opinions on stuff. I look at it and I just think it's an artificial position in the league for you guys. You haven't scored many goals. Son now being pushed further wide because Kane's coming back in. From an FPL point of view, I'm not really, okay, here's a big opportunity to pile into Spurs because they've got a good run coming up or they're in form or anything. I just think, meh. Like even Son is a lot of money at 10 million. So if I needed to find money, that's somewhere where I can potentially go. So tell me what your thoughts are and whether or not we should even consider anyone from Watford as well.
I would be thinking more about selling Son than buying Son at the moment. I don't disagree with that opinion, but I that's definitely not happening this week as long as he's fit, and he's not a player that's going to be a problem off the back of this red list stuff for the internationals. We deserve to win the game. There's no doubt. I mean, you talk about artificial league tables, mate. I can definitely say that I'll be looking at that league table every night before I go to bed until game week 4 happens and looking at the 19 place difference between Tottenham and Arsenal and just having a little smile to my face. It's never happened before, and I don't suppose it'll ever happen again. So lots of screenshots. Thanks for all those who sent them to me after the game yesterday. Made me smile. We well deserved to win the game. I think probably 2-0 would have been a more justifiable final score than 1-0. I was alarmed by Son's position during the game. I don't like him on the right, and I can't even explain to you why, because he's just as good as you've seen the goal against Man City, coming in off the right, left foot, far corner, no problem. He just doesn't feel right with him on the right rather than the left. They played on the right yesterday because I think Nuno would prefer to play Bergwijn on the left, and when Lucas came on, Sonny moved back to the left. And I don't think we should read anything into that too long term. I think Bergwijn got a rest in the European game. Lucas got a rest at the weekend. They played a lot during pre-season. In terms of which one of them's first choice come Crystal Palace in game week 4, not got a clue. Bergwijn's probably got slight favouritism purely because Lucas' direct running later in the game can be a little bit of a weapon, and it was for Tottenham in the game yesterday. And that would mean Son on the right. I don't like him on the right. I cannot explain to you why. I just do not like it. And I feel like most of his goals from that position have to come from, think about the goal he scored against Man City last year, where Ndombele played the ball over the top and he ran inside. I'm pretty sure Cancelo played left back that game. And then he's one-on-one and he slides it through. And against a lot of these weaker teams, he's not going to get in those positions because Watford set up in what defensively, as soon as they lost the ball, went into a 4-5-1 and made it very difficult to play through. And we spoke about this might be a problem for Tottenham because there's a clear lack of a creative player in that team. We are going to struggle in some of these fixtures. I was speaking to Dan, FPL Chancellor, yesterday, and said the feeling I have with Tottenham at the moment is that when we play these sort of teams, we ain't going to batter any of them. I went into the game yesterday fully confident we'd win, but I never looked at the game and thought Spurs are going to get 4 or 5 today. And I find it difficult to see that in upcoming games. Now, someone like Son, don't need it anyway. He scored 2 goals and he's got, 22 points this season or something. So you don't even need him to go mental in that position. For Kane, you are looking for more goals. You're not looking for 1-0s and stuff. That's fairly obvious. There's an issue defensively for the Palace game, clearly. So Christian Romero and Davinson Sanchez are obviously both South American. They're both going to go and play in internationals, it looks like. Romero definitely is. I'm not sure yet about Davinson Sanchez. Now, Sanchez and Dyer have been playing really well, and there's no reason to break up that partnership at the moment. Although we know that at some point, Tottenham are going to bring the player they paid over £40 million for into the team. It would probably be for Sanchez. This will open up the opportunity for Tottenham to do that. So Davinson Sanchez, if he misses the game, is a complete no-no. The problem is the opponent is not a good opponent for us to be missing centre-backs because, as I said earlier, it's Palace, it's Benteke. They'll put balls in the box. And without Sanchez or Romero, Tottenham are going to be short of height. The obvious solution you would think would be to play Tanganga at centre-back and bring Doherty, which is sick in the back of my mouth, into the team. But because Doherty is decent in the air, actually, that would probably make sense. And again, Tottenham are going to try and buy a player in the next 48 hours. If you want a defensive player, the best to get is Hugo Lloris. And the next best is Sergio Reguilon if you're happy to pay the money. I think, as it stands, Eric Dyer is probably going to stay in the team. But I would say the Palace game, if we don't buy, does not look good from a prospect of defensive. Even though we haven't conceded a goal yet, we're going to have major problems in that game if we go in with, say, Dyer and Tanganga at centre back. Honestly, because Benteke will just pull on to Jaffet all game and make it an issue, and Palace will be unapologetic about aiming for him. So be cautious, because then after that it's Chelsea and Arsenal. So, and Arsenal's away. And I don't think we've ever kept a clean sheet at the Emirates in the Premier League. I don't think, whatever you think of them at the moment. Chelsea at home's obviously tough. Then there's a tougher run from game week 9, West Ham, Man United, Everton away and stuff. So yes, you can invest. If you had to put gun to my head and I had to buy one of them cheaper defenders at the moment, I would buy Dyer. Okay. It doesn't appeal to me. It's not in my thinking at all. If you can afford the extra for Reggie, great. If I was to buy one of them now, honestly, the most likely for me to buy is Lloris, and that's because I need a Martinez replacement. And I know that he'll be busy enough and he'll get save points in a lot of games. But I think actually for the period I'm looking for, I'm not sure I want to justify paying the price of Hugo Lloris.
Yeah. Let's wrap up the games, and then we can maybe squeeze in a few questions from Twitter as well.
Watford.
Rubbish, aren't they?
Harsh, a little bit. Although I thought Xisco's comments after the game were defeatist in itself a little bit when he said that they had to have luck and play at their absolute maximum to get something from the game. We're a decent side. Manchester City, Chelsea, we are not, right? And I think there are opportunities that were there that could counterattack, and they didn't utilize it. There was a moment I'd like to share about half hour into the game where Daniel Bachmann threw the ball out quickly to the left-hand side. They got the ball into Dennis, and eventually they had a half effort that was nothing. Xisco lost his mind. He lost his mind with Bachmann for trying to initiate the counterattack. He didn't want him to. He wanted him to slow the game down. And I found that was something you're only going to pick up in a football stadium. And I found it quite telling about what he wants from his Watford side in games like this, is to slow the game down. But I think when you look at the makeup of that Watford team with Sarr, Dennis, Josh King, like, use the counter attack when it's there for you. And they didn't really. Sarr's a brilliant player, such a threat. Really, really good player. He's not going to be a bad buy in the upcoming weeks. They've got a really good, particularly next 3 fixtures, Wolves, Norwich, Newcastle. You can see him having some joy in. For those who've gone for Dennis, I've got good news, bad news. Bad news is he played on the left. Good news is when Josh King got taken off later in the game, he went through the middle. The really good news is he's a very talented player. I don't know if he's going to get attacking returns for you, and I don't know how often you want to be starting him. But I think if you have got him, in the next 3, you should probably play him. He does look a very, very tricky player. And Musa Sissoko has obviously joined them. And he's 4.5 million midfielder. And I think for those on the wild card, he should be a consideration. Because he's going to play right of the midfield 3. And in games that are easier on paper, I think he might be the one from the midfield that pushes on.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Man United Wolves. Wolves now have an XG of nearly 5. Wolves are the anti-Spurs, basically.
They're the new Brighton, mate.
Well, they're the anti-Spurs because you've won 3 games 1-0, and they seem to have lost 3 games 1-0. And they're sitting in the relegation zone now. You can't read anything into the table this early.
Nah, they had really tough first fixtures.
Horrible. But the thing is, we've seen it with Brighton in previous years. You think, don't worry, it will be all right. It will turn itself around. And they still end up finishing the season 16th, 17th. And it's not fun. It's really not fun to watch your team week in, week out, play well and not get any points or any returns. I can understand why Wolves fans might be a little disappointed right now. Manchester United away from home, though, their run continues.
I think you can understand now why I tipped Wolves to win.
Yeah.
It's so impressed with them with what I saw firsthand last week. And no, they're not going to be in trouble. I actually think Wolves are going to have a much better season than I originally thought they would have. And I think the fears of them being involved in a relegation fight, I actually think they're more likely to finish top half. I think they'll be closer to that now. they need to get this window shut, I think, because I know they need additions, but there's one or two where the bid might come in for a Neves or Traore and they might move or something. I mean, Traore was extraordinary again for a lot of that. You just cannot stop him. And there's a lot of people that do want to buy him for FPL because of what's to come. I think the first thing to say is if you buy a Wolves player, you have to almost unconditionally understand they're all going to sit in your team for the next 10, 11 game weeks, because there isn't a point where you're going to want to sell because of the fixtures. Every time they walk into a half difficult one, you look at the next one and think, that's good. I mean, the next four, Watford, Brentford, Southampton, Newcastle, conceivably could be the bottom four in the Premier League this year. I haven't forgotten about Norwich, because even the run ends 13 and 14 with Norwich and Burnley, who could be the bottom two this season. And the fixtures in between, Villa, Leeds, Everton, Crystal Palace, West Ham, don't exactly put the fear of God into you. So I'm really considering the goalkeeper, Sarr. I know he was a little bit at fault, but he had a presence about him when I was at the Wolves-Tottenham game that quite impressed me. I think he probably has a positive impact on the defence, who are still going to get done on the counter. I know Bradley Parker, Wolves correspondent, still of the opinion, as am I, that they want to move to a back four, or at least the manager Bruno Lage does, which makes all of the centre-backs a little bit dodgy. Bradley also thinks if it's a back four, that Conor Cody should probably come out of the team. I think Semedo's 4.9 is the really interesting one. I think you just have to reflect on it and go, do you want to pay 4.9 for a Wolves defender when you know there are 4.5s there? Saiss is the one that will get attention because the effort's on goal, but he's probably fourth or fifth choice centre-back actually when they're all fit. So I wouldn't go near Roman Saiss. I think it's Semedo, the goalkeeper, or Max Kilman if you really want to take a chance, who's cheaper, but it's probably not worth it. Marcel will get injured at some point. And I don't think he suits. I think he's all right. I think he gives Wolves balance in the back three. And I think if in the back four, he would definitely be the left back. I just think in some of the games coming up, Nori, because of the opposition they're playing, might be a little bit more suitable. And I wouldn't be surprised if actually that changes. Raul Jimenez, I think I need to see more at the moment to feel comfortable buying him. Because I know, as I said, once I go there, there's no turning back for me till a wild card. It's going to sit there. Am I happy for Raul Jimenez to get in my team for the next 10, 11 game weeks or so? I'm not sure yet. And what I saw of Watford yesterday, I'm not, although I say Wolves will give someone a battering soon, I'm not convinced it'll be Watford in game week 4. So I think I can probably take another week to view before they play Brentford in game week 5. And we might have a bit more idea of stylistically what they look at once we see them play against the team who will sit behind them a little bit, rather than Wolves utilising the quick counter-attacks. I mean, how does Traore look against some of these weaker teams? You think, yeah, that's better. But actually, it's not going to be as easy for him to run at the opposition, is it?
No.
Can't be. So, I mean, most other teams are not going to have Fred and Pogba in midfield for a start.
No. Manchester United is an interesting one. I'm only on Luke Shaw at the moment. They've got Newcastle at home, which is obviously a keep. But then the run all the way through to 14 is very difficult. West Ham, Villa, Everton, Leicester, Liverpool, Tottenham, City, Watford, then Chelsea. And you can tack on Arsenal onto the end if you want to. They might have sorted their lives out by then. So it's just not great. I mean, the big debate, I had to scan through the Twitter questions, James, that have come through. And the number of times that CR7 and Bruno in the same question get mentioned as where to go.
Predictable.
Is half, probably.
I love them questions. Do you think we're not going to talk about these players on the pod?
But I just look at it and then I look at the fixtures and I'm like, is there a desperation to suddenly get in? Or can I look at the likes of Chelsea that have a stunning run in that period? And there's a number of clubs that Leeds have a stunning run during that period and just come back to Manchester United come December.
Yeah. I've got Greenwood and Shaw. I can't see me adding Ronaldo at the moment. Can't see it. I mean, the first point is, does he even definitely start in game week 4?
No.
I mean, who comes out of that team at the moment? Daniel James comes out, I presume. So what? Yeah. Greenwood on the right, Sancho on the left. They haven't bought Sancho to play on the left. Bought Sancho to play on the right, ideally. So I guess is that the solution at the moment? Sancho, Fernandes, and Greenwood behind Ronaldo. Cavani, by the way, is now not traveling with Uruguay, and it's to be honest, it's this sort of thing that's making me the most nervous about captain Mason Greenwood.
They've re-signed Cavani, and he's just on permanent chill break. What's he doing?
It's a good player to have on a chill break, and it's a good player to bring on with Arthur to go. But then what, right? Once you've got Ronaldo up front in that position, are you moving Ronaldo? Are you just going to? I mean, the way I see it, when United are chasing games this season, I can see United playing 4-4-2 quite a lot, actually. And I can see Bruno playing it as one of the two when they're chasing the game. I can honestly see that as central midfield too, I mean. So I'm glad that I didn't buy Bruno. I still think he's absolutely one of the best captaincy options in game week 4. And I wouldn't go thumping your team to get rid of Bruno to put Ronaldo in for game week 4. I'd just stick with Bruno, honestly. But yeah, I think the time to buy has possibly gone. Bar, do you want to force in Ronaldo? I think if I did that, I'm going Ronaldo 4, 5, 6, and then moving to Lukaku in 7. And that's the only thing I like about it, is it's an easier route to Lukaku more than the actual getting Ronaldo. So I wouldn't captain him in 5 or 6. No chance. And 4, am I even sure he's going to play? Well, he probably is. But do they need to force it? I don't know. I'm not sure it's worth it, personally. And Ronaldo, there is a danger that people get hung up on the fact that he clearly has been and is still one of the greatest players in the world. But I had a question on at the weekend in terms of who do I think will win the Golden Boot. And my answer to that, honestly, was Kane or Lukaku. Like, I'm not convinced that Ronaldo will get plus 20 goals. This is different league. Different league.
Yeah, I've got Ronaldo down for 15 goals, I think, mate.
He can obviously go off. We know he's capable as a one-in-one player. And with the attacking talent he has around him, they'll create chances and he should score goals. Nobody's saying Ronaldo's bad asset or anything like that. I just think it's almost like the same with Bruno. Am I getting Ronaldo in to captain him this week when I know that even if I kept Cristiano Ronaldo, I probably wouldn't captain him again till game week 12? Reality. Yeah. Now, in my case, I'd be moving it on to Lukaku. I'm fairly certain. So there is a case maybe to still say, okay, look, Newcastle, West Ham, Villa. All right, I'll have some of that. But
you've got problems to fix, mate.
I can't see me doing it.
At the moment.
It's not priority.
Ronaldo isn't one. Yeah, exactly.
It's not priority. I think I would personally have to hear something substantial that made me think, yeah, he's definitely going to start. And he's going to be a hit to do it. And it's just, I can't see me doing it. There's plenty who will. The majority of people are going to steam into him. Anybody on Wildcards picking him up, I think.
Yeah. Do you want to, James, tell all of the listeners what they've got to look forward to for the rest of the week before I give a quick plug to our Patreon and then pow?
I shall. So people's poll vote is live now. Will be to around about 7, 8 o'clock tonight. There are 3 options. The latest update on the quarantine situation. We know we covered this quite a bit last week, but there's some players who could miss game week 5. There's some players who are not. So we could take another look at that if you want. We could also take a look at what we would do if we were on wildcard at the moment, which neither of us are. So potential wildcard draft. Or we can have a first look at UCL Fantasy, the fantasy game for the UEFA Champions League. Whatever of the 2 losing or from that vote, we will cover for our patrons tomorrow. On Wednesday, Sky Fantasy Football, we've got 2 big podcasts coming up on the next 2 Wednesdays. Next week, we're going to have a big look at fixture planning. This week, we're going to have a big look at a definitive watch list for Sky Fantasy. First is Clash of Correspondences, Leeds versus Liverpool.
Can I just ask you about that, mate?
Go on.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought it was fixtures this week and watch this next week.
I've changed.
Just so I know. Okay, fine.
I've changed.
Just so I know what I prepared. So I've been planning, studying the fixtures with a magnifying glass.
Why would you study the fixtures when you've got me?
Tell me if you're going to change the podcast.
Thursday
for Sky on Wednesday.
Thursday, Leeds v Liverpool, Clash of the Correspondents, FPL Tactician, FPL Loco Lord. Friday, I'll be streaming on YouTube, probably 3 o'clock. Remember, obviously, game week 4 is not till the following week. Internationals, unfortunately, is coming weekend. For our patrons, we've got a Q&A today. The 2 losing subjects from the People's Poll tomorrow. Tottenham Wednesday. We are first and second, Suj. Thursday, a quiz that's being done by one of our patrons, a Bolton fan, Joe Murphy.
I'm worried about this.
Friday, we're going to have a closer look. Once the transfer window's done and the dust is settled, we're going to have a closer look at some of the Premier League signings that we are less familiar with. We've got some players that are going to join the league in the next 24 hours or so we haven't heard of. I'm absolutely certain of it. For the advanced tier patrons, we'll go through all the unanswered queues today. I've got a Twitter look at Wolves versus Manchester United on Tuesday, transfer window roundup on Wednesday, a closer look at Ronaldo and what we can expect on Thursday, and a group Zoom call on Friday as well.
Yeah, I'm worried about this quiz on Thursday with the patrons, James, because Joe is young enough to be your son or my son. So
the quiz thing,
do you know, culture and shit that I don't even know about.
The quiz thing is players who've played in the Premier League who their country has never played in a World Cup.
Okay, that's going to be fascinating.
So can you think of one player? Think of a player.
Whose country have never played in Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Have
there you go, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. His country has never played in the World Cup, so he might be one of the answers.
Fine. Okay.
I think it might be former Premier League players as well. Just so you know.
If you are interested in joining our Patreon, it's well worth it. Head over to patreon.com/planetfpl. James mentioned a bunch of additional podcasts that you will get on a weekly basis. On top of that, we have some prize cash leagues, which you don't have to pay to enter other than being a Patreon. So each month, actually, James will need to top up our August Manager of the Month. So it's a little cheeky reminder that we need to do that. So you can win prizes in different tiers there. And there's a massively active Slack channel that you can join as well. And today's podcast, like we mentioned, is a Q&A. It's hard to get through questions when we spend so much time gibbering on about the games in the main pod. So if you really wanted to get your questions answered, then head over to patreon.com. You can just bug James on DM as much as you like. Other than that, that was a quick wrap, James. Next week, we'll be back to normal.
We're not doing any queues.
Well, we've answered the majority, and there are a few that...
Go on, find one. Go quick. Just find one.
Yeah, I found a really good one that I wanted to answer because we're talking about Bruno and Ronaldo. But Palace Ash, why is it taking so long to get Ronaldo's FPL price released? Because he's not signed yet.
Exactly that. It's not official, and they won't. They won't do it till it's official. I think Sky have given him a price. I think
there was another good one. Yeah, I think 11.8 or 11.3. Yeah, memory. Matt Halliday said, "Has Suj changed his mind on Fornals as a fantasy asset?" Which is an interesting enough debate as well. He's an attacking midfielder that's £6 million who does get in the box. He got 13 attacking returns last year. I think he'll better that, but not by much. He might get 15 this year. We are about to sign Vlasic from CSKA Moscow, who's a number 10, who's an attacking midfielder. So if he comes into that central attacking slot, which means Benrahma gets pushed out to the left, there's Fornals loses place. You've got Demarai Gray at 4.5 million, who I would buy ahead of Fornals. You've got Conor Gallagher at 5.5 million. Did I say 4? I meant 5.5. Who I'd buy ahead of Pablo Fornals. You've got Ismail Assar at 6 million that I'd buy ahead of Pablo Fornals. But he's an attacking midfielder who will get 15 attacking returns for 6 million. And he seems undroppable at the moment. He did an interview on Spanish TV the other day. He said he wants to retire at West Ham. The guy's just the most likable, smiley, happy.
Until a bigger club wants to buy him.
He just can't. He has to be quite possibly one of the most likable players that's come into West Ham in a long time. Like, he's always smiling. Everybody loves him. The point of what I'm saying to you is, I don't see how he gets dropped. Like, you always think he's going to lose his place. He never does because of his work rate and what he gives to the team. If you want him, go get him. But I'm not going there myself.
All right. Cheers, boss.
And thanks Bruno versus Cristiano, Bruno all the way. But that's answered 50% of the questions.
Oh, no.
For now.
No. I think if I had to buy one this week, if I've got the clarity that Ronaldo's playing, it would be Ronaldo. And exactly like I said, I've got that gate route ready for Lukaku. But I do not think that those who own Bruno Fernandes should be moving.
Answers it. There we go. Stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please, man child.